All right. I hope you guys are all doing okay at home. I know it's been difficult for everyone. Hang in there. It'll be all right. We'll get through it. We'll get through it. I hope you guys are taking good care of yourselves. Meanwhile, life goes on, right? So I'm going to give you some cool, new, exciting reading strategies to work with while you're working on the Philosophy 130 stuff. And this week, the chapter that's due is the one on feminist thought and the ethic of care. It's a pretty cool chapter, actually. That has its ups and downs. But our strategy this week is on organizing information. And we're going to do that with outlining and concept mapping. And you might be familiar with both of those. I don't know. I know that you've probably done some outlines. You probably had to produce some outlines either in your, like in high school or maybe in your English 101 classes. Maybe you have to produce an outline before you write the paper. And that's sometimes what we do is we gather all our ideas and then we try to organize them and then we go off to write the paper. Same idea here, except we're going the other way with it. We're taking the stuff that's already been written in the book, the ideas that are already organized, and we're going to organize them, kind of list them and organize them in a way that makes sense for us to be able to study. So the main thing about an outline is, and I know you've done these before, where you start with your Roman numeral, right, your main idea, and then the points that support that go underneath it, and you want to indent to show that this point of support supports this main idea. And if the author goes on and gives more details that are just related to this second point, well, we'll indent again, right? We indent to show that these ideas fall under this bigger idea. I think of it like an umbrella. You probably have a better metaphor, but my metaphor is an umbrella. It's like the main idea umbrella goes all the way out to here, so it's enough to cover all the stuff that's underneath it. Whatever. That's my metaphor. That's how it works for me. The point is that when you're organizing information in an outline, every time you come to an idea that supports what you just listed, you got to indent. And then when we're done with support number 2, well, heck, we'll move on. Support number 3, right? There's no one and only true right way to do an outline. This is the basic structure that we're going to talk about. So once we're done with all the support, say for this main idea, we might have a new main idea. Think of these maybe like the major headings in the textbook, right? And then the A, B's, and C's would be the minor headings that do all the explaining and supporting of those points. So let's try it out with your ethics book for chapter 9. I see that there are a variety of sections here. The first one, 9.1 or whatever, is broken into several others. So I'm going to start by just looking at the introduction. It's fairly lengthy for an introduction, so there might be some information we need there. Our major heading here, gender in moral reasoning and the ethic of care. It's probably ethics of care. I have ethic of care, whatever, it doesn't matter. So they're going to talk to us about how gender identity, I guess, masculine and feminine perspectives, and how that relates to what they're calling an ethic or ethics of care. In the introduction, one of the first things I noticed as I'm reading through, it's they're talking a lot about how all around the world women are oppressed, still to this day, right? So that's kind of the main idea, I think. Under, I don't know, introduction. And their main point there seems to be something like, around the world, women, hope you don't mind me writing like that, right? Women are experience inequality and oppression. And as I read through, they give kind of a lot of examples. One of them might be lack of education opportunities. And I'm just kind of looking paragraph by paragraph. As I read through this chapter, that's probably the best way to organize your outline. So they still experience lack of educational opportunities, violence, rape. You know, compared to men. There's a lot of places around the world where women just aren't allowed to go to school, period. And of course, in instances of rape and violence is not exclusive to women, but there is plenty of violence directed at women as a result of their being women, so to speak. There's also, as I'm reading through this chapter, next couple paragraphs, there are what I'm going to call insidious forms. These are obvious versions of inequality and oppression, but there's other sort of insidious ones, sneaky ones that we don't notice at first. And you've heard about this, right? Like unrealistic standards of beauty, eating disorders. Pornography. Although there's different takes on that as you read in the chapter there. As who's this? McElroy thinks porn is liberating and a celebration of sexuality. I'm going to go ahead and put that here. You could indent and put it, make it an A. But I'm just going to say McElroy disagrees. What else do they say in here? We're talking other ways about how around the world women experience inequality and oppression. Female fetuses are aborted in some countries or in some cultures because male babies are more highly valued. Because male babies are more valued. And on and on. We can keep going. And we would keep going if I hadn't turned my computer on. In the next paragraph, they do give us something important. It is going to be my number 4, but I'm going to do it in blue because I want to make sure I remember this. They define feminism for us. And they say that feminism is an intellectual commitment and a political movement to end sexism and promote justice for women. That's a mouthful. Let's see. Intellectual commitment and political movement to end sexism and promote. It's not really just promote women, is it? Justice for women. Anything else just from the introduction? Yeah. There's this business about Carol Gilligan. So Carol Gilligan, it says here, did some studies and found that women approach morality differently than men do, and that philosophy has largely ignored the female, or I guess feminine perspective. I'm going to have to do this kind of small, I hope you bear with me. 5, Carol Gilligan. She identified a feminine and masculine perspective. And as you might guess, the female perspective she called care. I am going to indent because this is about the female and male perspectives, so I'm going to indent to show that this relates to this idea. The female perspective is the care perspective, whereas the male perspective is the justice perspective. Hope you guys can see that. Can't really tell. The care perspective emphasizes, there's actually a chart on, I don't know what page number it's on, but the care perspective is personal, partial. That means it does take sides because it's based on the relationships. It's private, it's natural. It has to do with feelings toward the other person and having compassion. Whereas the male perspective is justice oriented. It is impersonal. It doesn't take sides based on who you are and what relationship I have with you. It treats everyone the same. It is public, contractual. It emphasizes fairness and reasoning. Whereas the female perspective emphasizes compassion and care and promoting relationships. You with me? Good. Okay. So I've given you an outline kind of like this to get started with that covers this part of this first section of the chapter, and then I've given you some stuff where what I've given you is an outline. The first part is done. The next part is partially done. There are some blanks for you to fill in, and then the rest of the chapter is for you to do. This is not a long chapter. I'm not asking you to do the outlines for all the different readings in there. So this can be done pretty painlessly. This will get you through the introduction. But now we're moving on. All of this has to do with the introduction. So the next thing we would do, if we have more room, would be to come back out here underneath this A and put a B. And what is our B going to be? That's right. I made that joke. Is there a gender difference in morality? That's the next heading here, right? So the question that they're going to tackle here is, Gilligan identifies this gender difference in how men and women think about morality. Is there even such a thing? Is that even really true? And you'll notice that early on in that section, the author talks about how, well, later experiments weren't quite as clear, and perhaps what we are able to conclude is really that the differences in this care perspective versus this justice perspective is not necessarily attributable to men and women, or male and female, or masculine and feminine, but maybe it's attributable to educational ability or other social class distinctions. Because remember, all this is about it being based on masculinity and femininity, a male perspective versus a female perspective. So I'm going to leave you to the outline, right, that I've provided for you on Blackboard. And this is how it starts, and I'm going to leave it to you to kind of finish the rest of the stuff. You can see what we've done, though. Just in looking at the first kind of minor heading in this section, that became our A, and then we just sort of listed our notes there, right? So the next thing we'll do is B, which is there a gender difference in morality? Now, this is one way to go about it. Nothing wrong with it. Outlining, the thing to remember is, remember this is about organizing information. The things you have to remember is that when you come up with ideas that develop the bigger ideas, you got to indent. You got to keep the umbrella over the ideas. All of these are like details that explain this idea, that's part of what explains all around the world women experience inequality and oppression and so forth, right? And that explains this broad topic, gender and moral reasoning and the ethic of care. The concept mapping or idea mapping and idea web, a lot of different names for it, you've probably done it before. It's just another way of organizing information. One isn't better than another. I actually kind of think concept mapping is probably a better way to organize information. But I'm an outliner. This works for me. I'm just a linear thinker, it turns out. For those of you who aren't, that's fine. Do the map. Try a little bit of both. See which one you prefer. But I'm going to show you that concept mapping is the same thing. So that is, it's visually different, but it's the same idea in that it's a way of organizing information. So all this same stuff that we have up here, we could put over here into a concept map. So I'm going to do it over here on this side. We'll start with like we did here. Instead of starting at the top of the page and working down like it goes in an outline, you can kind of start anywhere. Traditionally in a map, you sort of start in the middle. So that's our main idea. What are the ideas that develop it? Well, thing that falls underneath it first is A, the introduction. And in our introduction, it says, around the world, women experience inequality and oppression. Remember, everything else developed that. So our first point about violence, rape, and lack of education is one set of ways that women around the world experience inequality and oppression. Well, that is an idea that develops this. So in a concept map, we just kind of branch out. And we'll say violence, rape, and education. I said violence, rape, and no education. The next one will be the insidious forms. And those would be whatever, eating disorders, porn. You could sort of circle this and say porn, you know, my outline, I put them on the same line, mostly just to save space. And then, of course, for porn, we would have to say McElroy disagrees. But you'll notice that this McElroy disagrees, that's just related, can you see this? McElroy disagrees is just related to porn, not about everything else. So that line is just connected to that one. What else do we have? The insidious forms. Female fetuses are aborted, that was number 3. Because male babies are more highly valued. And so on down the line, right? One thing about the concept maps, you know, it can get a little messy looking. Sometimes when I pick up a page that's been mapped, it just looks like circles all over the place. I mean, it looks really difficult to follow. But if you go from the middle and you just kind of go one thing at a time and follow the train of thought, you can follow it. If you try to read it all at once, yeah, you're done. It's not going to happen. But if you just go kind of one little bubble at a time, then you can work your way out to the details, and you can see that everything here, oh, I did the wrong thing. These fetuses were aborted. That doesn't relate to this idea. That relates to this idea. Right? Around the world, women experience inequality and oppression. Kind of everything that we have left to say is related to that idea. This was our introduction title. For the next heading, is there a gender difference in morality? Different bubble, right? All the ideas that relate to that would come off of that bubble. So yeah, when you do a whole chapter like this, you can end up with a lot of bubbles all over the place. Maybe the best thing to do is take each of these headings like this, right? Let me circle them in red to remind you. Oh yeah, great. But those were sort of our A, B's, and C's, right? It might make sense to do each of those on a separate page. You don't have that many in this chapter, I think 4 or 5. And they kind of have, they do a lot, you know? There's a lot of details that follow them. So rather than try to squeeze everything in the whole chapter onto one page, it might make sense to say, you know, 9.1 to do on one page, 9.2 to do on a separate page. I mean, it's really up to you. In the end, the idea is that you want to organize the information so that you can see which ideas support and develop which other ideas, okay? So that you can study from it. If you can do that all on one page, well then, you know, God bless you. To me, it's too confusing. I gotta do an outline. I like this better. It's harder for me to work with. You know, I should probably practice it more honestly, because I think it's a better way of organizing information because in an outline, because things are go top to bottom, the things that are listed first appear more important. But in a concept map, you can put stuff wherever you want, right? So there's no implication that one idea, just because it came first, there isn't really a first, because this, you know, when you're just looking at it graphically. So you don't get the implication that the ideas that come earlier in the outline are more important than the ones that come later. It's just a psychological trick in any case. It doesn't really make a difference. But for whatever reason, that's why I think this is better to organize it, but just my nature is to follow kind of linearly top to bottom to do an outline. For you, for your purpose of your assignment this week in terms of chapter 9, feminist thought and the ethic of care, you can do whichever one you want. Or you can do a little bit of both. I encourage you to try them both ways. But it is totally up to you. This strategy isn't outlining or mapping, it's organizing. And outlining or mapping are just two ways we do organizing. So however you want to organize the information is fine with me. Please let me know if you have any trouble. Send me an email right away. I'm going to do my best to check email often. I know that this is a tough time for all of us, and we're working through some kind of unfamiliar territory, but we'll get through it. It's going to be okay. I'm going to keep putting up videos for you so you don't have to miss me too much, and if you want to post some videos of yourself, I strongly encourage you to do that too. I'm going to put up a place in Blackboard for you to submit these assignments. I prefer you don't email them to me because that's going to get pretty hairy pretty fast, whereas if you submit them through Blackboard, I'll be able to keep better track of them. If you need to do it on a piece of paper, right? You want to draw it out on a piece of paper because you're doing a map or something, and take good pictures that I'm able to read. That's fine. Just do your best with it, okay? If you have questions, please let me know. I expect you to do your very best, and I expect you to get it to me in a way that is convenient for both of us. We're all going through this together. We're going to have to be a little patient and flexible with each other. So I'm asking that you please submit this through the Blackboard, submit button. You'll see when it's available. I haven't put it up yet, but I'll put it up shortly. You'll be able to submit assignments through there. And if you need to do it on paper and take a picture, that's fine. This, you can download, the document that I've already started doing the outline for, and you can kind of fill in the blanks and then take it from there. Totally up to you how you want to do this. Just remember that just like all the rest of our strategies, organizing information requires practice. And you know what? I know you've got time. So amuse yourself. Keep yourself occupied by practicing reading strategies with your super exciting ethics content. And until next time, I'm going to take off. Feel free to email me or get in touch with me however you can. I hope you're staying well, and I hope you're doing a good job by your family, and you take care, and we will be in touch soon. Bye-bye.